Since purchasing the rights to Lucasfilm, Disney has had a tough time reaching profitability for it. They had some breakout success with their Star Wars sequel trilogy, but that ultimately wasn't enough to reach profitability on their initial investment when you factor in how much they spent on those movies. And they've also damaged the brand to the point where everything following that has really not been successful. At best, they had some mediocre hits on their Disney Plus platform with some of their shows, but they weren't enough to really drive in the customers on the platform that has been losing money every quarter since its launch. The most profitable aspect of the Lucasfilm acquisition is probably Star Wars merchandise, but even then, it's iffy if it's truly successful for them, and also it hasn't been enough to actually put their investment in the black. It's gotten to the point where some of the Disney media allies are starting to question if Disney, in fact, is bad for Star Wars. This came out from the Hollywood Reporter last week, where they're asking this question, and the article is a little bit wishy-washy on it, and it kind of comes to the conclusion that the fans are ultimately the problem for Lucasfilm, which isn't really the best approach to kind of go by, but you know they're going to try to spin it how they do in order to try to defend Disney in any way, shape, or form. And I think a lot of the reasons why the fans have largely abandoned Star Wars is because they stopped trying to just tell good stories that people could enjoy, and instead have been using it as a soapbox to push their own political messaging, which is alienating to a vast majority of the Star Wars fan base. And we got this article from Bounding into Comics is just kind of an example of what's going wrong with Disney Star Wars. Disney and Lucasfilm provide first official look at Star Wars' new transgender clone trooper. Roughly 2 years after the character was introduced in the galaxy far, far away, a newly released Star Wars encyclopedia has provided audiences with their first official look at the franchise's first ever transgender clone trooper.
You are not. You're not a woman. You don't look like a woman. You don't act like a woman.
Now, just to be clear, this isn't a new character to Star Wars. This character first appeared a few years ago in a novel and has since appeared in another novel. This is just the first time that we're actually given an image of this character that's considered a official image of this character, and it's not just fan art. We got the Wikipedia entry for it right here. Name sister, homeworld Camino, human, gender, female, pronouns, because that's apparently a separate thing. She, her. This should also be male, by the way. But anyway, jumping down into this entry for sister. You got this image right here for, well, let's just say, her. And one thing I noticed that I really enjoyed about this is that they're using what we know on Earth as the trans colors, you know, the pink and blue. It's like, okay, whatever. I mean, I can kind of buy that. Having a little yellow here, I think, is kind of suspicious, because one thing people who will know when you look at those colored flags that these people like to fly, when you start putting yellow into it, that's when you get into the kind of pedophile flag. Not saying that was necessarily a dog whistle in this situation. I just think it's kind of odd that there's a hint of yellow there. Is almost as if they're just trying to apply, like, you see that, if you know sort of thing. Here's the author of the book where sister first appeared, E.K. Johnston, and sorry to this person. I actually had to look up after seeing this image, like, wait, is she trans? And that's why she included. No, she's not trans. I was kind of surprised by that. She just has a very strong jawline, but she does identify as, I don't know, some of those other orientations or whatever. I'm just some of the weird ones that never existed outside of like 5 minutes ago. But jumping back into this article from Bounding into Comics, it says sister made first appearance in E.K. Johnston's 2022 prequel era novel. Born of a Camino cloning facility and named sister by her fellow clone troopers, neither Johnston nor fellow Star Wars author Mike Chen, who penned the character's only other franchise appearance in the 2022 novel Brotherhood, and kind of an ironic title if you ask me, have truly delved into the character's history, medical or otherwise. And yeah, I kind of would be interested in the medical history of this clone trooper. Like, why did they decide to transition and all the other millions of clones never did? Is there something wrong with it? Because I could actually understand that if it was not necessarily like a trans clone trooper, but there was just something off with the way they did the cloning for that particular character, something like that. And there was just something that went wrong in the process. And as a result, it created a female clone of Jango Fett as opposed to just the typical male one. You could probably do something like that, but maybe that's a route they wouldn't want to explore because they don't like the idea of saying that someone who's trans is just basically, I don't know, a medical anomaly or a mistake or something of that nature. Truly all that is known about Sister is that she served alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Commander Cody in the Clone Wars, and that she once held some reservations about whether the Jedi would accept her transgender status. In fact, E.K. Johnston even said she made it a point not to give this character Sister a designation number, so Anakin would be forced to ask, like, oh, you don't have a number? What's your name? Just so she can establish, I'm saying like E.K. Johnston can establish a reason for Sister to say her name is Sister to Anakin. He's like, wait, what? Take off your helmet and then be surprised to find out that it's a female clone. To this end, not only does Sister currently have little more character than any of the millions of other clone troopers seen throughout the series, but it's also currently unclear just how she came into her transgender identity. In other words, there's no reason for this character to be trans. It's literally just diversity for diversity's sake. And some people are going to try to argue this and say, like, it's not diversity for diversity's sake. It's just a trans character. Trans characters or trans people exist within the world, so they should be represented within this. Like, if you actually come into anything with saying we want representation, then you're trying to push a political agenda with it. There's nothing organic about why this character would be trans. It's literally just there because the author identifies as some of those weird orientations and wanted to include a trans character so she could say that she was the author who created trans characters within the Star Wars universe or something of that nature when it comes to this, and didn't really even consider the ramifications of that, because it points out in this article why a clone trooper would be considered as trans would be a problem with the cloning procedure. They said it would make the character want to chop off their bits and be trans. I say it just makes the character a female as opposed to a male clone, but tomato, tomato. Either way, the person who's trans is a medical mistake, so to speak. Another issue, though, with this is the ramification, because if it isn't actually just from some issue with the medical procedure that cloned the troopers, then the reason why this character is trans is a social change. And if that's the case, I don't think they want to get into the idea that people are transitioning because of outside pressures versus that's just who they were when they were born. So either way, this isn't really a good look if you just stop to think about it for 10 seconds. Upon her introduction within the pages of Johnston's novel, very little visual information was provided about the sister's physical appearance, with the only confirmed information being that she shared the same base attributes as her father, Jango Fett. Then they just went on a little bit further, saying that she had braids because, of course she did. And one thing that I think is kind of funny is she looks like she's black here. Maybe I'm not so familiar with Maori people, because I know Tamara Morrison, who they modeled the clones after, is Maori from New Zealand. So he's not black. He obviously has a darker complexion, but she just looks like a black character here. So I don't know if that was intentional or if they wanted just to push it to more diversity points when it comes to this. But yeah, this is that first official image that's not considered just fan art. However, while their art of Sister simply exists as a personal piece of fan art, it was officially adopted as her official appearance in the newly released Star Wars: The Secret of the Clone Troopers, an illustrated encyclopedia intended for kids, written from the perspective of Bad Batch's Captain Rex. So you got this image right here. That's well, I guess this is the first official one now. This is the fan art, but they use the fan art to base this one off of. Right here, note that they say this is for kids because they're not trying to indoctrinate kids or brainwash kids or anything like that. Now, this is just purely organic. It's like, yeah, you see this token character that we put in there just for the sake of having a transgender character, market this to kids or whatever. We don't have any ulterior motives with that. What's that one thing that Disney executive said when it comes to many of their other sequels? They're trying to push their not so secret gay agenda. I'm getting those kind of vibes when it comes to something like this. But when this kind of thing happens, do what I'm doing here. Just kind of laugh about it, mock it. No reason to get angry about it, because there's no reason to get that invested when it comes to Disney Star Wars. They've already killed the franchise right now. They've done, I would say, pretty unspeakable things to it. I'm not going to get too graphic about it, but yeah, it's essentially dead at this point right now, at least with the current leadership right there. The only way they can fix it probably be just to decanonize everything that Disney done and start over, or at least try to undo a lot of this stuff. But right now, though, I'm not really even upset about it. I think at this point, when it comes to Disney Star Wars, maybe they might put out some stuff that's enjoyable just as a one-off, but for the most part, just laugh about it, mock it, and enjoy the train wreck, because that's really all we're getting when it comes to Disney Star Wars, especially when you hire people who are just trying to push some political agenda and just putting in tokenized characters. So if you actually criticize them, they'll just hold up this character as a meat shield for your criticism. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.